mode.
Good afternoon, guys. Welcome to the special edition HeroComp 2014 Think PPC webinar. Today's topic is PPC Gladiators, the battle for power in a crowded marketing landscape. We wanted to wait a couple minutes to get started to make sure you guys could all join us. So we're going to go ahead and jump on in. Really quickly, I want to introduce everyone to our presenters today, as well as myself, not to awkwardly talk in the third person. My name is Kayla Kurtz. I'm the Senior Digital Advisor here at Hanapin Marketing. I'm also a blogger for PPC Hero, and I will be MC hosting HeroConf this year again. Super excited to get back down to Austin. The reason today is a HeroComp special edition presentation is because we've got two of our presenters and speakers from HeroComp this year with us today. So I've got Miles Olson, who's the Vice President of Customer Engagement at Searchforce. He, like I said, is going to be speaking at HeroComp with us this year. And we've also got Lance Wilson, who is the Paid Search Program Manager at Cabela, also speaking this year at HeroComp, and we are super excited. You guys want to say hey really quick?
Hey everybody.
Hello from Miles.
Awesome. We're really excited to present our topic to you guys today. And again, that is going to be about the battle for power in a crowded marketing landscape when it comes to paid search. So really what we're going to be talking about here is how you can stretch your marketing dollar, because obviously there are a lot of channels that need coverage when it comes to total digital marketing and marketing in general for any brand. We've got some unique perspectives. So myself being on the agency side, Lance is managing in-house over at Cabela's, and we've got Miles from sort of the automation platform standpoint with Searchforce. So we're going to cover a few different topics. We're going to talk about how you can be a successful gladiator for your PPC account. So how you can really make the right argument for paid search and get your team on board. We're also going to talk about those different perspectives we've got about PPC marketing and sort of how to make those cases for either more budget for paid search or getting into that area in the first place. We'll talk about how changes in the marketing landscape can make you sort of shift those original decisions and make adjustments to your paid search budgets. And then we'll also talk about, once you get that budget, how to kind of avoid the potential micromanagement of how to allocate that and make sure that it's being invested in the best and most profitable way possible. All right. We've also, of course, got our Think PPC hashtag running on Twitter. If you guys have any questions throughout our presentation today, we'd certainly love to answer those at the end. We are going to make sure that there's some time for Q&A. So feel free to send your questions to the Think PPC hashtag, or obviously use that webinar question box over there from GoToMeeting, and we'll get to those as well. All right. First up, we want to ask you guys a little bit about your background. So for all of our attendees, we want to know how long you've been in PPC. Has it been less than 1 year, 1 to 3 years, 3 to 5 years, or 5+ years? So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and kick that over for you guys to start responding. Let's get some responses from our presenters as well. Miles, how long have you been working in sort of paid search or the digital marketing realm?
Digital marketing, I think somewhere around the 15-year mark right now. Started to spend a number of years in email before pay-per-click, and pay-per-click specifically about 10 years right now, so almost since the beginning. And I did spend most of that time on the agency side prior to moving over to Searchforce and focusing specifically on software and technology solutions.
Cool. Lance, what about you?
So I've been in the e-commerce world for about 4 years now, and paid search specifically about 3. I've always been on in-house teams, never with any agencies, and been spending some pretty big budgets the last 2 companies that I've worked with, getting some great experience with paid search using those large budgets and leveraging those.
Cool. Awesome. I'll chime in really quickly. I've actually been in paid search for right at around 3 years, and we just published the poll responses, and I think we've got about 44% of people who are attending with us are right around in my range of 1 to 3 years. So next in line, we've got less than 1 year at 26%, 3 to 5 years at 19%, and 5+ years up there with you, Miles, at 11%. So hopefully we've got some insights that really target all of those different experience levels. And guys, if you're ready, I think we're going to go ahead and get into the meat and potatoes of the presentation. So,
Sounds good.
awesome. So our first question is, why do you feel PPC or paid search is a necessary piece of a brand's marketing picture? And we're going to kick it over to Miles for his response to this first.
Okay. Well, I first want to just start by broadening the question out a little bit and just kind of saying, well, that's the same question you should be asking for all your marketing channels. So it really, the pre-question there is, why should any advertising channel be a necessary piece of your marketing budget? And the answer is always because you've got some sort of goal that you're trying to achieve with your marketing, with your advertising dollars, and you're going to find some channels and some media more successful than others. So the first step in kind of figuring out if pay-per-click is going to be good for you or how much you should devote to pay-per-click is defining your goals and knowing, is that we're trying to get more branding and just exposure from our brand? Are we trying to, drive more leads for our internal sales team to go close? Are we trying to drive online sales and revenue and profit there? And then based on what you decide your ultimate goal is going to be, then you can go back to pay-per-click and say, well, how well is that going to meet those goals? So pay-per-click has a lot of big advantages regardless of what your goal is in figuring out if it is going to meet them. First, it's highly trackable. We all know that. There's a lot of data available, and that data goes far beyond what Google is able to provide, Google or Bing is able to provide you directly. Your additional tracking, integrating with CRM systems, integrating with your e-commerce systems, you're going to get a lot of data to find out how well is pay-per-click at doing at driving more sales value or driving at more higher profit sales or driving more leads for your sales team. So I'd say that's the number one thing that you want to consider when saying, should this be a big portion of our marketing budget, and how much should we devote to it? One other thing that I like to add there is that pay-per-click is one of the few marketing channels out there where you can actually specify your ROI in advance. You can actually come out and say, I want to get $5 back for every $1 I spend, and based on that defined goal, you can actually manage your campaigns to hit that, and then let that volume fall where it may. So typically, if you're advertising online, pay-per-click should be the first place you're getting started with. It should be that one where you say, how much volume can we get at that ROI in pay-per-click, and then the rest of it, let's go distribute it in the others that aren't quite so trackable.
I think those are both really great points, and I tend to agree with you, especially from the agency side. It's really beneficial for us that when you go to look at paid search against, let's just say SEO, like organic search, that data doesn't necessarily come back as quickly as we want to see. So I think that's a really important reason to include PPC or paid search, is because it is so trackable, and like you said, you can kind of define up front what you want the goals to be. Lance, what are your thoughts? You ready to chime in?
Yeah, so along with the great points that Miles had, one of the things that I wanted to add about PPC and why it's so necessary is PPC's ability to be as specific or targeted as you want for your brand, to target your customers. There's so many levers that you can pull within PPC that will allow you to target who you want. So if you have a small budget, you can use that small budget and be extremely targeted and get the ROI that you need. If you have a larger budget, then you can do more testing. You can be a little more competitive and bid a little higher. There's a lot of different things that you can do with PPC that allows you to pull those levers. Advanced site links is a great example. Instead of having that time to kind of promote maybe a different promotion you have for your company, through SEO, advanced site links, you can just put it in there in the advanced site links if you have multiple promotions going on at once. Just a simple example of how PPC can leverage different promotions that you might have going on. Cabela, that's huge for us. We have spring sales going on, fishing sales going on. If we want to put that on top of our brand so our customer knows what's happening, advanced site links is a great example. Another example that I'll just mention is the ability to to target non-branded terms. There's a lot of things that would be hard to compete for with SEO, and would take some time to get your position up on the page. But with paid search, you can bid on those non-branded keywords. I know our data analytics team has come to us many times about specific brands, and we can target that right away. And right away, we bring traffic to the site for something that we're trying to push. So.
Yeah, no, I think that's another really exciting thing, and it kind of leads into my main reason why I think paid search is such a necessary piece of any brand's marketing scheme, and that's because there is a segment of your audience that's just online, and you may not be able to reach them unless you're in those paid search ads. I've seen lots of reports and statistics over the years about how there are certainly pools of people who just don't click on paid search ads. They always go organic, and the same is true in the opposite way, where even if you're showing up in the top space in your organic listings, people are just prone to clicking on paid search ads, some of them. So you've really got to be prepared for that range of psychology and how you need to be speaking to people and where you need to be occurring in the search engine results to make sure you're covering as much of your market as possible. All really great points. Moving on to our second question, how can you educate either your clients or the advertisers that you're working with? And we're talking about either at the onset of beginning to work towards paid search or on an ongoing basis as you're consistently coming back and reviewing your budgets and things. How do you do the education on the shift from traditional marketing channels like straight up commercials, billboards, that kind of thing, that shift that we've seen over the last decade or so more into online marketing channels? Lance, we'll go ahead and have you answer this one first, if that's all right.
Yeah, so I think this is a great question, and it's really important. Cabela's, if you're not familiar, has been a catalog company since 1961. And that was its core business, was catalog. And as you can guess, as we've moved more into the internet world and the e-commerce, catalog has become less important. Well, a lot of people at Cabela's have been around the company for 15 to 20 years. So explaining to them the necessity of being online and using paid search is extremely important. That's why you have to educate them. You have to educate them on how it works, the different levers that you can pull, how you can target, and all those different things. Education is key. Constantly I have to educate what we call our digital merchants who are in charge of promoting, a camping or a fishing products, whatever it may be. And if I don't educate them, then they don't understand how they can leverage me. And if we both understand how we can use each other, then we're just going to be more effective. Another thing I would say with agencies, it's the same thing with agencies or platforms or software platforms. You have to educate those clients or advertisers, and you have to speak to the level. Sometimes they don't understand the acronyms that we use or how we explain things. You really have to speak to the level so they can understand them. If you don't, then they get confused and they don't know how they can use you and leverage you to allocate that budget for you.
Yeah, it's funny you said. I literally just wrote a post about that on PPC Hero, I think about a week ago, because I had a somewhat unsettling conversation with a client who had been working with an agency and had no idea what quality score was about. And so it's those kinds of things, right, that really sort of rock you back on your heels and say, okay, you need to understand what we're actually providing from a value standpoint beyond just the direct PPC performance. I think that those are really good points, especially as we see that shift in e-commerce in particular with brick and mortar locations, and making sure you can match up that performance with the online performance and draw some lines on where those things meet up with each other. All very, very good points. I'm sure the move from catalog to paid search advertising was not an easy one at the onset. So very good insight. Miles, what are your thoughts on educating those advertisers that you're working with on why it is important to renegotiate where you're investing your marketing dollars from traditional to more online versions?
Yeah. Well, I'm in 100% agreement that this is a huge issue. Whether you're internal team, agency, in my little notes I wrote here, I had one word response to this question. It's like you have to do it proactively. if you don't start educating the other decision makers, whether that be the higher ups in your organization, CEOs, people making budgeting decisions, whether internally or from the agency side, there's going to be a lot of confusion as you move down the road. So I've found the biggest educational topics that we have to address. The first and most important one is getting them to really understand all the implications that come along with operating in an auction environment. That creates so much confusion, and things as simple as, when they start coming back to you, well, we want to, get this much traffic, we want to get this much, here's our goals, how much is it going to cost? And they don't understand how difficult of a question that is when we're dealing with an auction. It's like, well, it can go two ways. Either, A, we don't know how much it's going to cost because we haven't bid in the marketplace. We got real-time auctions going that define whether we're going to get shown and possibly get that click and then spend money. And then from the opposite point of view, it's actually up to us. Well, how much do you want to pay? This is an auction. We decide how much we are willing to pay for a click. And so one side of it, we've got a lot of control over how much you want to spend. And on the other side of it, it's a huge unknown. And all of this just kind of results from the fact that we are purchasing media in an auction environment. It also has implications, and by the way, cut me off if I start running too long on this one, because I think it's real important, that they understand that in a lot of situations, we need to let the market drive decisions. Very often, they'll come back with this offline marketing mindset that they need to decide on what they think would perform well in the marketplace. So let's say, hey, we think blue widgets are hot now, and we really want to focus more of our spend on that. Where we like to come back and say, well, that might not be a good thing. Why don't you let the market decide? If blue widgets are converting well and you're making a good margin on that, better than other places we can spend your money, then yes, that should be driving the decision of pushing more spend to that rather than a decision made before you actually get that performance data back. And the one other kind of big thing there is in pay-per-click auctions, since it's an auction environment, you have to do better than your competitors. And this is a huge thing that where if you're not running your campaigns efficiently, you're not taking advantage of all optimization opportunities, you can count on the fact that your competitors are, and they're going to get better performance out of their campaigns. And if they can get better performance, they're going to be able to bid higher from you. They're going to be able to take more of that volume out there, and ultimately, they're going to drive more revenue than you're going to drive just because of the fact that they ran a tighter and more efficient campaign. So all these real important education, if you don't explain this to your customers, if you don't explain this to your higher ups, there's going to be confusion and a lot of demands for you to do things that probably are not going to be good for your marketing campaigns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really love your point about letting the market decide, right, where your budget gets allocated. I think that's even once you get over that bridge of educating and getting people to understand, that we need to have some digital presence as well. We see it on the agency side where clients say, no, I want all of my budget in Google, and it's, well, wait a second, what if we're converting on Bing, we need to shift some of that Google budget over. And I think that's a really important point, and it speaks as well to one of the things that I use as huge leverage from really shifting budget, or the general shift from traditional to online, is that it just is more trackable, and I think that letting the market tell you what to do is an important piece of that. I think another thing that's really helpful in terms of really sort of bridging that gap of, okay, we're gonna start making the shift from billboards to online marketing, is that letting your client or your higher ups know that you're not throwing out everything you learned from those traditional channels. So if you learned information about how people shop in your catalog, what kinds of call to actions, even within that kind of copy, really speaks to them, we'll carry that over, and we can utilize that online as well. So all of those traditional marketing dollars that your clients and your supervisors know that you're not throwing that information out just because you're moving on to an online market. Really, really great points, guys. The third question that we're going to run through today is, how do you know it's time to actually start moving that budget from either general or traditional channels, or maybe in PPC from another channel completely, from PPC engine to engine? How do you know that it's really time to start making those shifts? We'll go ahead and we'll have Miles, if you want to respond to this one first. I know you just sort of wrapped up talking, but we'll let you keep going.
And this, I'm going to start sounding like a broken record. These decisions should be made based on performance data and how well, each channel, search engine, what have you, is meeting your goals. So again, we got to define those goals first. What are you trying to reach? I wrote down the same example as you gave, Kayla, that we just hear that so often, where a client would come to us and says, yeah, well, we want to spend 80% of our budget on Google and 20% on Bing. And always have to have that conversation of them. It's like, well, what if we do that and you're getting a 700% return on ad spend on Bing and only 400% on Google? You really want us to stick with that and not pull more budget over to Bing that's performing better and getting you better profit margins? So it's a really common thing, and back to kind of that educational thing, really letting them understand that the market needs to drive these decisions, not some sort of guesstimate in advance of where you think budgets should go. I also want to kind of point out that the problem of kind of within channels that, and this is something hard to get past from a financial point of view, that finance teams typically want to give pay-per-click and any marketing channel a fixed budget. We have allocated X dollars for 2014 or Q2 to spend on this, and you need to stay within that, and typically you're incented spend all of that, use it or lose it. But that invariably is going to lead to suboptimal performance. And I'll just kind of put this in an example, that if you got a budget of say $100,000 in a month's period of time, and you're a retailer and your target return on ad spend is 500%, well, they give you 10,000. What if you spend your whole 10,000, you hit it on the nose, and you've got 1,000% return on ad spend? You could have driven more profitable revenue for the company if they would have allowed your budget to go longer. So the company's actually kind of shot themselves in the foot by limiting the budget to that $100,000. They could have actually had more profit by spending more. This could go the other direction just as well. They give you $100,000, 500% target return on ad spend. You go out there and you're struggling. You're able to actually, when optimizing that, only spend $60,000. So when using that kind of use it or lose it mindset, you start saying, well, where else can I spend this? You start moving down to these sections of your campaigns and the components of your campaigns that don't convert quite as well, ultimately lowering your return on ad spend. And so you essentially end up wasting money and losing margin if it's set too high. So either way, unless the finance team, or you can tell the finance team this perfect prediction of exactly what the market is going to ultimately reveal is the best amount to spend to hit the most revenue and profitable dollars for your budget, that you're ultimately going to have suboptimal performance.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that you are preaching to the choir in that regard. I think that it's frustrating, but then you also just sort of have to sit back and wonder if you're not necessarily just vocalizing it in the right way. So, you give the example of, Mr. Client, I'm making you $6 for every one we invest. Can I have another 10 grand? And they say no. And it's just so hard to understand where the breakdown in communication is there if you're reporting everything. Hey, can I have some of that money from your catalog budget perhaps to put over here because we're making a tremendous amount of money this month? All very good points. I think the 80-20 rule when it comes to paid search and with budgeting is incredibly important. Lance, your turn. You ready to chime in?
Yeah, and I think that's funny that Miles mentioned that. I'm assuming that it happens to everyone, but that's the exact same thing that happens with us at Cabela's. We're given a paid search budget for the year, and we just have to hit that budget. ROI isn't necessarily as important, but then you have all those problems of efficiencies of just spending that money and not hitting ROI goals, or needing more money because something worked. And that's definitely an issue we have here. And I think that goes back to point number 2 is education, just understanding how paid search works. But another thing I'll add to what Miles was saying as far as when you know to move some of the marketing budget around to paid search, I think you need to test. Testing has to happen all the time in paid search, constantly. You test because new things come out through Google betas, through Yahoo, and Bing, whatever it may be. Things are always changing. The market is always changing. The way people search is constantly changing. And if you're not testing and staying above the curve, then you can't justify your dollars anymore. But if you do test, you can make new findings to justify that budget and to make your campaigns more ROI efficient. And the great thing about paid search is your ability to test. You can test as fast as you want or as slow as you want, and with as much money as you need to or as little money. Those are the levers that you can pull in paid search, and which makes paid search a perfect place to test so many different things. And then also you can target specifically. If you want to target a specific region, I know we have certain product launches in only certain retail locations. Well, we can target those geolocations specifically and do a test that way and help out the retail brand. And then, just like I was saying before, you got to test often. And another thing with that, you have to test well. There are certain protocols or processes that you need to follow when you test. You can't be testing multiple things at the same time, because then you won't know what works. And then once you have those learnings from testing, it goes back to the education. What did you learn from the test that you can help educate the higher ups with? What are those learnings that you have that you can put into practice? Once you have those learnings from the test that you have, from actual data that you receive through paid search, you can support your arguments and make those budgeting decisions and help those higher ups to make those budgeting decisions for your channel. Testing is huge and always will be huge in internet marketing and paid search.
Yeah, I agree. I think that
Yeah.
my
Can I jump in on
response
this topic as well?
Oh yeah, go for it, Miles. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, I just testing, huge. If you're still running your pay-per-click campaigns the same way you did 5 years ago, you're losing, guaranteed. And we deal with that with so many companies, especially now. You're kind of on the software solutions side, where we're not actually managing the campaigns, and we'll see a lot of structural setups that I remember from 5 years ago. Like we used to expansive keyword sets where let's get out as many keyword possibilities for every product service we're trying to sell. That used to be a great strategy, and it used to work really well. It doesn't anymore. Things change, and if you're not testing and making sure, did that stuff that was working for me last year, is it still the best way to do it? You're very likely missing some big changes in both the way the market's behaving and the way that Google is handling and managing that auction.
Yeah, no, I think that the testing is something that's you can't not have a good testing strategy when you go to bat from a PPC budget. I was just going to mention that I think the way we have the most success with any client when we're saying, hey, we want more budget and this is why, is if we're going to ask for more budget, is giving them some bookends on this is why we're asking for it. This is where we're going to be investing that budget. These are our potential expected results, right? Never any guarantees, because it is paid search, right? But this is what we expect to get out of it. So as long as we carry out our plan as we've outlined, and if we get you this return, can we have that budget, right? So you have to get the buy-in, and you have to explain yourself very thoroughly up front. I always feel like my answer to this question, because clients will sometimes come to us and say, should we move budget over to PPC? And it's a very exciting thing, right? Because you just want to say yes. But the answer is, well, is our return on ad spend telling us to do that? If you've got a channel that's really sucking, yeah, let's at least give us that budget to test something new with. If the budget's already failing somewhere else, that's an immediate even if it's not paid search that you're shifting into, pull that budget and get it somewhere else. So I think that that's my big kicker, is you move budget when your return on ad spend tells you to, or when you're not getting a return from a particular channel, PPC included, unfortunately, right? We see that happen often. So very good responses, guys. I love the idea of testing. I think that's something at Hanapin that we kind of pride ourselves on. So hearing that coming from all different areas of the industry, I think means that PPC in general is moving to a really healthy place. And I just kind of got goosebumps. I hope that that's not weird. Awesome. So great. Moving on to our next question. How do you look at the marketplace and make decisions based on your brand vertical for the competition when it comes to PPC budgeting? So when you look at your marketplace and the people that you're competing against, how do you decide if you need to make additional shifts in your budget to meet those changes? Lance, we'll send it over to you first and see how you handle this when it comes to Cabela's. I'm sure you guys have plenty of competition, and I would imagine that you watch them pretty closely to try to make some decisions for yourself and for your brand. So take it away.
Right, exactly. I don't think it's any surprise if you're familiar with Cabela's, who our number one competitor would be, and it's a huge competitor for us. So it's pretty simple, I guess, if you look at it just kind of its most simple form, is if you're not bidding on certain non-branded keywords or even branded keywords, your competitors are going to be there, and your competitors are going to get that traffic. So that's that is almost reason alone just to be there for paid search, because you don't want to lose that traffic to your competitor. If we lose that traffic, then we're going to be losing the retail space. We're going to lose in a lot of different areas. I also wanted to mention brand bidding. Brand bidding is something that can be very inexpensive, but also helps you kind of get your competitors out of that space as well. I won't say so much about Google, but for Bing, I know for Cabela's, we've struggled with other competitors bidding on our brand terms and showing up. So you can say, well, if we don't bid on Cabela's branded terms, we'll already show up in the natural search in position 1. Well, sure, that is the case, but someone else can bid in your branded terms, and we fight with that all the time. And I'm sure that's different for every different brand out there and company out there. But for us and for big brands, we have to be there. If we're not there, we're losing that traffic, and we're losing that revenue and I guess the battle for customers. Another thing about that I'd like to mention is the ability with bidding against competitors in that to enter markets that you aren't there already, or you aren't already at. I know for us, we have an issue. Cabela's is more focused on hunting and shooting and that. Our competitor is more focused on fishing, and they get a higher traffic for fishing. Well, in the retail space, we want to be there. We want to be there in the South. We want to be there for fishing. That's what we want to do. And through paid search is the way that we can start to enter that market at first. We can start bidding more on those terms, and we can start focusing more on those regions to build our brand in that area, so that when we enter the region with our retail stores, we have more of a share of voice there, and that's really important. If we don't do that, we're going to lose it. So it's a very competitive atmosphere, but if you don't compete, you're just going to lose. So that's at Cabela. That's kind of our philosophy, and that is what kind of gives us our budget and is what our goal is, to beat other brands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that those are great points. One of my favorite debates is brand versus non-brand, and from a paid search aspect, clients come to us all the time and say, why would I pay money for a click on my branded term when I'm certainly showing up first in the space organically? And the answer is, yeah, you're showing up first in that space today, but there are new competitors, and they're finding new ways to try to take that top spot away from you all the time. So generally speaking, branded clicks are fairly inexpensive. So if that means that you can absolutely saturate the marketplace and make sure that those fishing competitors don't somehow weasel their way up into the #1 paid search spot because you're there, I think that's what you have to do, and that's a really quick way to say it. It's not going to take me a tremendous amount of budget to make this happen, but then we're going to make for certain that this particular competitor stays off of our terms and they don't get the revenue that should be coming to our brand. Very, very good points. Searchers are smart, but they'll accidentally click on a competitor's ad if they're bidding on your brand terms because it's the top one and they assume it's got to be you, right? So you need to make sure that it definitely is, and that's a good way to pull some budget elsewhere, from elsewhere. My apologies. Awesome. Miles, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I might as well chime in on that brand bidding. I have certainly seen situations of companies that are not bidding on their brand term and competitors are, and by the way, I almost always recommend bidding on competitors. And you can have 3 ads that show up at the top before the natural search results come in. You might have some specialized SEO content that shows up below that, like maybe a video or maps or local listings. And it's very likely that, yeah, you're showing up the #1 natural search position for your brand, and you're barely above the fold. So that's a big issue. They might not even see or notice that you're on the page. And then you also have the issue that, yeah, these clicks are very cheap. And we also know that when we're bidding so much on the competitors and seeing the amount of revenue and conversions that we're driving from bidding on our competitors' terms, that's just certain evidence that they are also pulling business away from you when they bid on your terms. So, but that didn't answer the question that was on the slide here with the gladiators. So let me get to that real quick. And that was how the actual brand vertical or competition affects your budgeting decisions for pay-per-click. And my answer here is actually not that much. If we're actually talking about budgeting decisions, neither is really a big factor. Certainly your brand vertical, extremely important for defining your strategy and how you decide to set up and manage and optimize your campaign. But budgeting still should be going back to that kind of ROI-based decision making. How much volume can we drive while still getting that $20 cost per lead or 500% return on ad spend? And then when moving over to the competition, that actually really, I encourage companies to spend less time focusing on what your competitors are doing in pay-per-click and more time focusing on how you can optimize your performance. The one exception to that I have is ad copy. I like to spend a lot of attention looking at how competitors are positioning their product. But when it comes down to, I know a lot of competitive analysis tools out there, like a SpyFu or something, find out what your competitors are bidding on, how much they're bidding on certain terms and stuff like that. And even if that data was good and was reliable, it doesn't mean they know what they're doing, and it doesn't mean that they're being successful with that. And really the best thing that should define your strategy and your optimization is your own performance numbers measured against your goals.
I think I agree with you a lot on that. That obviously the main kicker should be your own campaign performance, and that's how you should be making decisions. If the return on ad spend is good, increase it. If it's not, maybe we need to back down a little bit. So I definitely do agree with you, Miles. I think the only time I kind of start looking more at the competition when it comes to making PPC budgeting decisions is when we're approached by a client and they're sort of drastically misaligned with the market and what they're considering going to market with from a budget standpoint, right? So they come to us and they say, we've got $20,000 to invest. What could that potentially look like in the market? And and then we look at the competition, and they're spending north of 6 figures. It's going to be really hard to get in there and make a name for that brand sort of new to the space if the competition is just trouncing them in terms of budget. So I think that there's certainly something to be said about looking at competition and making sure that maybe, so if you're not getting the return you want, like let's look at it. Maybe we haven't opened up the doors enough for this particular channel to actually get in the door. So I think I agree with you guys a lot. I think it should mostly be on return on ad spend, but I don't know that there's necessarily any harm with making sure that you're also aligned with who you're trying to go to bat with. Awesome. We are really trucking through this presentation, guys. We're actually up to our last content question, and then we're going to chat about some hero comp stuff because we're really super excited. But the last question, and I'm going to have, Miles, I'll have you answer this one first, but what methods have you used on your end, sort of with the platform side, to tackle micromanaging a budget. So you've gotten the budget, PPC is getting this chunk, but then even after that, there's a lot more decisions that are trying to be maybe forced on where that budget gets allocated within PPC. So how do you handle that? It's kind of the Google Bing argument, right? Of I want all of my budget in Google. Well, but Bing over here is doing some good things for you. So how do you handle that, Miles?
Yeah, and well, first of all, I have to reach back to kind of more my agency experience because on the software side, we're usually not the ones managing the budgets, but yeah, this is a big issue, and you have to come up with strategies to deal with it. So the first, which we've already discussed ad nauseum, is education. Explain the strategies for good budget management and why you need to follow those strategies. And that's really probably going to be the best thing for you. After that, I have often set up special rules with clients. Hey, let's decide in advance how much decision making you're going to leave to us and how much you're going to have. And you kind of work that out in advance at the very beginning of an engagement, and saying, you decide how much the budget is total. Maybe you decide how much you want to be devoting to branding versus conversion-based optimization. And maybe if you want to push more on certain product categories over others, but leave us the decisions on kind of between search engines, between anything where we're trying to optimize very specifically for ROI. Those things should stay with us. And you set those rules up in advance and you stick to them. And typically I found customers are, if you pose this very early on rather than kind of late as they're already starting to ask for budget switches, that works really well. Just having rules that everybody knows that this is what we're going to leave the agency or the pay-per-click manager to decide, and here's what we're going to let the executive teams decide. And then the final thing, I put this in here because it's probably not something you want to write down as a strategy, but I use fear. I definitely start explaining that and driving some fear that if you start doing this, your ROI is going to go down and you're going to lose money. And it is true, but sometimes you need to, especially to executive teams, remind them of that bottom line of you're going to lose money if we do it this way. Those are my methods.
Yeah. No, I think that's really important. I know we've talked about it a lot in this presentation, but there is not enough to be said, and there isn't enough said in this industry about having those maybe somewhat uncomfortable conversations up front. One of the things we always say to our clients is, listen, when you first come on board with us, we're not going to argue with you that you know your brand and your audience probably way better than we do. But what we are great at is paid search, and where our experience is in is what we know works on the PPC side of things. So there needs to be some communication back and forth of, okay, yes, tell us what you know about your brand, but then we can't ignore the things that we know about PPC, just to necessarily deliver 100% what the client wants or what they want to see. So I think that's a great point, Miles, is having that conversation up front. Okay, you get to decide how much we're going to invest in brand, because we understand that that's something that's really important to you. But in terms of how the competitor bidding goes, like can we run that based on what we're seeing on our side with the performance, and if we notice a new competitor coming into the space. I love that. I love having more of those conversations up front. I don't think it happens enough with clients to agencies or in-house to the higher ups. So Lance, with that, how do you handle that situation? Is there a lot of you mentioned earlier that you get your budget for PPC sort of all up front for the year. How often does somebody actually come back to the table and want to discuss with you how that's getting allocated?
Yeah, that happens all the time. We have to allocate budgets to different categories all the time. And one thing that helps me and helps our team manage, that budget once it's allocated, is understanding the industry. And so I won't necessarily talk about like the methods that we use, but more importantly, learning the industry first so you know what methods you should use, because every industry is different. and it's kind of a phrase that I've kind of lived by my whole life, is becoming a student of your industry. You constantly have to learn. You constantly have to learn about paid search. Being a student, you have to learn about the new tactics that are out there. But that also goes for becoming a student of your industry for the company or whatever it is you're selling. You have to be a student. You have to learn it. You have to understand the business, because if you don't understand it, you're gonna allocate that budget incorrectly. You're gonna use incorrect methods to manage that budget. One of the biggest things is learning keyword quirks. You know, in America, Coke means something in the South versus in California as soda. So there's different keywords there to learn. You have to learn. For each industry has different quirks, different keyword quirks that you have to learn. If you don't know those, you're gonna miss out on some good traffic there. Another thing is you got to learn seasonality. Every business has different seasonalities, and I'll speak a little bit to agencies as well. Agencies, you deal with a lot of different clients who are in different spaces. But you will be more successful as an agency if you learn that business to the best of your ability. The more you learn and the more you know about that business will make your paid search campaigns more effective. You'll know where to put that spend into what campaigns, how to organize your ad groups, how to organize your campaigns, how to geo-target, all that stuff. But you have to learn it. Another thing about learning your business is using internal data. Every company has a lot of internal data that I think can be used more effectively. You can learn about categories that are doing well, certain products that are doing well, certain seasonalities that are coming up, and you know, the products that do well during those times. And that doesn't just go for a retail or an e-commerce e-tail business, but it can go for lead gen or anything. Because I worked in a lead gen before this at a lead gen company. But there's often low-hanging fruit that you can get with the more internal data that you have. And once again, I know that's harder for agencies to get that internal data, but if they can push their clients to get the internal data, they can then use that information to then manage their budgets in their PPC campaigns. So not necessarily methods to manage your PPC budgets, but definitely something that's extremely necessary to be more effective with your management of your PPC campaigns. You have to know your internal data, and you have to learn that business. If you don't, you're going to miss out on a lot of things.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. We actually, we sort of a couple of years ago saw that was a really important piece, right? Actually getting to know the client's brand and more behind the curtain type view of that. So we do things like on-site visits where once a quarter we try to go on-site to the client's actual office and go see what they're doing. We worked with a print shop client a while back who they did mass photo printing, and they also did little projects and things like with kids' school pictures. And the difference between them and where they were targeting the market is they really wanted to be on the quality photo print side. So not trying to compete with the CVS's and the Walmarts who offer 15-cent 24-hour prints, but really high quality printed on canvas type photos. And what we did was we actually sent the account manager up to the plant and had them sort of do a walkthrough of what the product purchase and preparation process looks like from front to back. And they learned really exciting things to put into ad copy about the value and the quality of the products that the customers for that brand would be receiving. They learned a lot about how to actually package together, like you were talking about, keywords into ad groups and into campaigns based on where profit margins were lying and everything on those different product areas. So I think that's a really important note, and I think that's the best method to handle that micromanaging piece. Is if you feel like you've gotten the budget and then there's some continual feedback that's maybe not necessarily helpful, is to make sure that you do that education on your own end and make sure that the client or your supervisors know you've done that and you hear them. Because really, if you communicate that you hear them, that's what they're looking for. They don't want to micromanage you. That's why they have you doing it. They don't want to manage the PPC. They want Lance to do it. They want Miles' platform to work on it. They want my team to be on their accounts actually managing that budget. So if you let them know you're willing to listen and hear them and then learn from those things and adjust accordingly, I think that keeps this issue from cropping up more than a couple of times at the onset of a relationship. So All very good points. We've got a few minutes left here, and so I want to find out from Miles and Lance. Obviously, we're, man, right around a month away, a month and a week, oh man, from HeroConf. So I want to find out what you guys are most looking forward to. We're going to have a ton of content. There's also going to be some super fun receptions and nighttime events. So Lance, why don't you tell me what you're looking forward to most?
Yeah, so I've attended Hero Conference before already, obviously. And one of the things that I always look forward to is really just meeting people and networking and really learning about how they do things, how they manage their campaigns, how their businesses work, how different industries work. I mean, it's places like that, and you can learn on the internet too, but it's places like that where you learn that pharmaceuticals have terrible quality scores no matter what you do. And it's just interesting, and it's always fun to learn about those things in the paid search world, and it broadens your perspective of paid search in the nation and in the world, and that's what I'm most excited for. There's always something interesting, interesting people, interesting methods that I learn when I go there, and I'm always really excited about that.
Yeah, I think that that's something we heard after year one of HeroConf, and it was one of the reasons why we wanted to keep it going strong, was because you would think that paid search is a fairly competitive market, you know, in terms of agencies, in-house people maybe not quite as much, right? But sometimes you wonder, like, if people are going to be very forthright and helpful with the information and the things that they've learned. And what we discovered at HeroConf was that that's all that it is. It's everybody just trying to learn from one another, whether it's really direct vertical to vertical. Hey, we do the same thing. We sell the same thing. Let's talk about it. Or like you said, you can learn stuff from the pharmaceutical industry that you can apply to Cabela's accounts, and you wouldn't think so, but you can. So I agree. I think that's the environment at HeroConf, and sort of that community atmosphere of really sharing thought-provoking paid search strategy is second to none. Miles, what are your thoughts? What are you most excited about in Austin?
Well, I'm based here in Austin, so the thing I'm most excited about is not having to travel to go to a conference. Um, aside from
Good
that,
call. Absolutely.
yes. Aside from that, yeah, it's the same thing. It's just the fact that so many people are coming to this that I've already worked with for possibly years and have never actually met in person. So I love the fact that it's another group of colleagues that I get to actually spend time with directly, and also just that ability to, you know, I'm an expert in a lot of stuff in pay-per-click, but not all stuff in pay-per-click. So, kind of finding out for other people who are experts, how are the people who deal strongly in mobile dealing with, cross-device tracking, when somebody goes from a search on a PC to a conversion on a mobile that actually converts not on the website but on the app store. Tough problems to solve and stuff that I might not be able to devote attention to day to day. Now I get to hear people who are and how they're dealing with those type of things. So the ability to talk to others who are experts in places where I'm not.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I agree with you as well. I get a little bit starstruck every year at HeroConf because there's someone who is there that, like, I either have been following on Twitter or I read some of their blog posts, and to finally get in front of them and a little bit nerd out and be like, okay, I read your post about this thing 3 months ago, and I've really been wanting to ask you this question. And everybody is incredibly cool about sitting down to take that time. I think that it's sort of in a similar vein. That's what I'm most excited about for HeroConf, is that last year, Google and Bing both made some pretty exciting announcements about product launches that were coming up within those engines. And because we were at HeroConf, we got to hear about it first and sort of bug them a little bit about, hey, you said in April it was coming out in June, so where's that at? I'm certain something like that is going to come up this year, and who knows what it's going to be. So really exciting stuff. Really can't wait. Hopefully some of you who are attending the presentation today, if you've not already registered, you definitely should. You're going to miss out. Well, thank you guys so much. Miles and Lance, I really appreciate you guys joining us today. Really quick, we wanted to make sure everybody knows what these two gentlemen are going to be speaking on at HeroConf, because they pitched with the best of them, and they were selected on a short list to come and present to you guys. So Miles is going to be discussing digital ad automation, how to create impact with efficiency. So obviously with a platform like Searchforce, that's something that's incredibly important for any brand. And Lance is going to be talking about how to do PPC for B2C. So how to speak from an e-commerce place to each individual customer or a potential customer, and pull them into your brand and make that revenue happen for you. Guys, we've got just a couple of minutes, but feel free to give your best 30-second pitch for why people should come to your session if you want. Miles, go first.
Okay, sorry, I was muted. So
You're fine.
yes. Oh, automation, so important. The thing with pay-per-click, it's never-ending work. There's always more you could do to make things better. So the more you can automate, usually the more optimization, more efficiencies you can find. So yeah, if you're struggling with, the things like, well, bid management across hundreds of thousands or possibly over 1 million keywords, if you're struggling with integration with other systems, if you're struggling with, that manual process of reviewing search term reports, all of these are things automation is going to help you find solutions for.
Love it. All right, Lance, you're up.
Yeah, so I'm kind of known to be more non-traditional PPC and how I do things, and so I think I might have some ideas and some different findings that I've had that might be new to some people just because of my non-traditional ways as I do my paid search. On past jobs, they sometimes call me a loose cannon with the things that I do, but it's always worked for me, so it will be interesting and fun for sure. It'll also be my first time, so I'll be really nervous and probably, mumble, stutter, and I'll be in a boot because of a broken ankle, so I'll just be a spectacle, all in all.
Hey, I like it. You got to get somebody to the show somehow. Lance is going to be in a boot, guys. He could trip over. This is going to be great. Awesome.
Yeah.
You guys, I'm really looking forward to it. We'll see you both down in Austin in just a little over a month. Really quick before we let everybody go, we've got one final poll question we want to send out to everybody. So on the Hanapin side, we want to offer any of you who are managing accounts spending more than $20,000 a month. If you're having some issues, if you're wondering if maybe you need some extra help on the side, certainly not even necessarily to 100% outsource your paid search campaigns, but you're just looking maybe for some help. Give us a holler, let me know. I'd be happy to do a solutions blueprint and talk through maybe how our team could assist. All right, so we actually didn't get any questions this time, so womp womp, no big deal. We apparently covered the topic so well, we got you guys covered, which is perfectly fine by me. We'll skip through that portion and just sort of wrap it up and say goodbye. So thank you guys for joining with us today. We really appreciate you attending. Again, don't forget to register for HeroConf. It's April 28th through the 30th down in Austin, Texas. We've still got about 30 to 40 seats left, so we're getting pretty close to selling out, you guys. They're going pretty fast, and last year we saw quite a few of them go in these last few weeks. So make sure you get on to HeroConf.com, register, come visit, hang out with me, Miles, and Lance, have a drink, learn about PPC. And if you guys do have any questions that you think of after the presentation wraps up, feel free to reach out to us directly at marketing@hanapinmarketing.com, and we'll get back to you. Thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you in Austin.